Good evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you may be listening or watching, folks. This is the Onward to Victory podcast from Giant Killer, your one stop shop for all things George Mason basketball. I'm Joe Samansky. He's Palmer Johnson next to me. We've got a big episode for you today. We're recapping two big wins last week for the Patriots, as well as looking ahead to the next three games on Mason's schedule. But let's start with the win that took place last Wednesday, Palmer, after a snowy couple of days. Mason and Davidson are able to meet up in Fairfax. George Mason takes a rough and tumble Davidson team down 60-52. One of the best defensive performances by George Mason on the year, no doubt, Palmer. What went right for Mason in the end to take this one in your eyes?
The defense. I mean, they held him without a field goal or held him without points for like 7 minutes. Uh, if you actually look, Davidson scored 9 points in three of the four 10-minute segments.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they scored 25 in one of them in the second one. But I mean, nine in the first 10 minutes and then 18 in the second half. That's
Yep.
that's gonna do it.
That's going to do it. That's going to do it is right. A big game it felt like for Mincy today on that night, Palmer. 7 of 12 for shooting, including a big 4 of 7 from 3. 5 assists as well. 2 steals as well. Mason creating a couple of turnovers there. 7 steals on the night for the Patriots. That felt big as well. Fat Hill also as well, 14 points. The big storyline, of course, for this game, Palmer. Riley Allensbach missed out the full game. He's been rated as questionable the last 2 games. This was the one of this set that he missed. He's dealing with an upper body injury. May not be fully 100%, but he did miss this one full. Huge couple of minutes there in terms of minutes from Nick Ellington, who had missed the last couple of games himself due to a concussion. So a huge game from Ellington, I think, just from the minutes he was able to give.
Yeah, I mean, Ellington went from. I mean, he didn't play much in his first game back from the injury. He only played 16 minutes against Rhode Island. Having to go out there and play 24, pretty pretty good for we haven't played too much in a while.
Yeah.
Uh, it was just very important that you know they just kind of were able to get it done with your backup center in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a big one for the Patriots indeed. No doubt about that. Really the storyline that we talk about the defense, Mason holding a Davidson team that's been fairly efficient from 3 all season, averaging almost 37% from beyond the arc. Mason held them to 31% uh, beyond the arc that night, as well as only 41% from 2, like we've been talking about. Probably the best defensive performance that Mason held all year.
Yeah, I mean, Davidson's a team that uh, if you're not guarding the three well, they will make you pay. They'll at least take threes. They have guys who can make threes and they will take them. I mean, Blooms is pretty much Terrence Hill,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it was just a scary. I mean, Bloom still went 4 for 9, but RJ Greer went 2 for 2, and then everybody else just kind of stunk.
Yep.
You know, it was just kind of Mason just kind of decided, oh, okay, well, Bloom just going crazy. Okay, well, he's not going to go crazy now. Can anybody else do anything? And the answer was no.
Yeah. Big one. I felt like Parker Friedrichsen, who's had a lot of success for Davidson this year. 41% 3-point shooter so far in conference play. Only took 2 threes in the game on Wednesday. Mason again, Tony Skinn seemingly schemed very well. It felt like it was a very aggressive defense beyond the 3-point line there. Felt like Mason was going to try and force Davidson to beat them with their 2-point game. Obviously, that is not Davidson's game. It did not work out well for them. And I think that's some credit there to Tony Skinn. Without Riley Allensbach, still putting a lot of defensive trust in Emmanuel Conga and Nick Ellington and shutting them down defensively. A very good game from all the guards. And this is something that's been building, I think, this whole season. Just the on-ball defense from the guards like Jahari Long, Corey Mincy in particular, Fat Hill, Masai Troutman, has all seemingly very much improved from the start of the season, where that was a real concern.
Yeah, Mincy felt like kind of a defensive liability at some points in the season, but I think now he's kind of figured out how to be used, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Because there'd be times where it's like, oh, he got screened and he got put 18 feet off the ball. But I mean, he was locking guys up in the Davidson game. I mean, he got the teeth chain, which means he was the best player.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty crazy for your number one option on offense to also, I mean, be defending really really hard. Generally, guys who are the number one option offense kind of just take it and just sit in the corner on defense and hope nobody goes near them. But he was, I mean, taking the challenge, and I mean, Davison didn't score very much, and
Nope.
he was the point of attack defender.
He was indeed. He was indeed. Palmer, though, we move on to Saturday. And Palmer, this kind of felt like Trap Game City in Ole, New York, on the road against St. Bonaventure. Their alumni night, their 80s night, a sold out crowd in the Riley Center. And for about 33 minutes there, it looked like Mason was all but done and finished down 14 under 7.5 minutes to go. But man, Palmer, this team just finds ways to win and finds ways to not quit. George Mason with an incredible fourth quarter comeback, outscoring St. Bonaventure 28-10 over the last 10 minutes of the game to pull this one out 77-73. Big games. Riley Arlenspach back in the game, puts up a bit of important 9 points and eight boards off the bench. Huge game from Fat Hill as well. Not really getting to the free throw line as much, but that's because he was just making his shots. 8 of 11 for Fat on the day for 16. Corey Mincy, again, undeniably one of the MVPs. Huge game, especially from beyond the arc. And then Jahari Long, Mr. Clutch. Maybe didn't have the offensive game he would have wanted, but he hits the late 4 free throws. Those are Mason's last 4 points. That gets them the 4 point win. What an incredible comeback on Saturday night, Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it in the spaces. The game was over. The game was over, and you're just kind of watching, and all of a sudden the announcer said like that cuts it to a single point, a single digit deficit. Like, oh, whoa, okay, okay. And then a couple minutes later, Malik Presley hits that three to cut up the floor, and you're like,
Yep. Oh.
oh, 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 this is real now. Like this isn't. They can make it close. It's this is real. Like they have a chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there was that big Allen Spock flagrant where it was kind of like, oh man, that was fun while it lasted. Didn't end up really mattering.
No.
Uh, but I will say, I think that it probably is not a coincidence that Mason won the last 10 minutes 28-10, and St. Bonaventure, the players don't need rest because they're young.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that is not a coincidence. Mason running, let's say 10 deep, really 9 with 4 minutes from Booker.
Mm-hmm.
And, Bonaventure pretty much only ran 6 deep because
Yep.
they had one guy play 5 minutes. Mason just kind of outlasted him and kind of bit him in the end.
Indeed. Huge game rebounding, I'll say, too, for the Patriots. 29-22 advantage there over St. Bonaventure, a big key stat. What Tony Skin's not going to like, though, Palmer, 16 turnovers, including a very rare 6 for Corey Mincy. That's something that Mason is obviously going to want to clean up here heading into the next set of games.
Yeah, Mincy is listed as having 6 turnovers. A couple of them probably would not. I will say at least one of them is not going to be listed as his fault by anybody who watched the game.
Mm-hmm.
I would give him more 3 or 4, not 5 or 6, not 6.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, you can't have 3 or 4 is not a good amount to have.
No.
Luckily, Mason was kind of forcing turnovers because it was an insanely bad turnover game for them.
Yes.
And they also forced turnovers because Bonaventure had 14 compared to Mason 16.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a really bad turnover game and you only lose it by 2, you take it.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely in that case there, Palmer. Just again, but the comeback win incredible. I want to give a couple of plays shout out. A huge offensive rebound by Fat Hill on a missed Mincy 3 that put the Patriots, I believe, down, either tied the game or put them back up 1. Huge, just a grit play there by Fat, who again really kind of did get all that he wanted at the to get to the basket this game. Was huge. Again, Riley coming off the bench, big 13 minutes from Conga, 7 boards in 13 minutes. I mean, Emmanuel Conga, as a freshman, even Palmer, just continues to have been a rebounding mean machine.
Yeah, I mean, uh, people always say rebounding transcends levels. Like no matter who you're playing against, you're just going to rebound. And Conga's kind of a case study of that, where this guy's a really good rebounder in high school, and he's a really good rebounder as a freshman in the A10. Uh, it's just crazy because it feels like Mason that sessions like feels like Mason will have the third closest person to the ball,
Mm-hmm.
and the other team will have first, second, fourth, and fifth. And Conga still gets it. Like Conga's getting it where like it's a crowd of bottom measure players, and he just gets it. And it's
Yep.
just kind of crazy. I think it's because he doesn't play. He knows he doesn't have to play 30 minutes a night, so he can go all out for every board, and that's really important. Also, gonna give him a shout out for his defense. It was Frank Mitchell's night, but Conga was still like he was making him work at least.
Yes.
He wasn't getting. There was somebody between him and the rim, and that's really important because then if he does miss, you have a chance for the rebound. And he was doing fine.
Mm-hmm. That's yeah. Great points there, Palmer. Great points all around. But let's move on to this week and next week, Palmer, where we've got for the second time this season Mason coming up after this week with a Tuesday night game. But we're going to start with this week, Palmer. It's Pennsylvania week in Fairfax, Mason. We'll start off the week taking on Duquesne, then homecoming on Saturday against streaming hot St. Joe's team. But we'll start with the Dukes. It's been a weird season for Duquesne. A lot of ups and downs, some decent wins, some confusing losses, and really it just kind of turned into a lot of mid in terms of their ranking. Seventh best offense, eighth best defense, really being held up by above average 3-point shooting and defense. However, interior defense and a lack of turnover creation has really kind of killed the Dukes at points this season. But this is a team that has shown their stuff. They've played some teams very close, played St. Louis close, they've played VCU close, but this is also a group that's kind of struggled on the road at times this year against better opponents. But it's a really interesting matchup. Still, the only team that Tony Skid has not yet beaten in the Atlantic 10 is Duquesne. What's the matchup looking like here, Palmer, and who should people look out for from the Dukes?
Duquesne's a scary team because I feel like their ceiling hasn't been hit yet because, as you said, they've been a really good shooting team, but their two best shooters, well, Cam Crawford was like the A10's best shooter last year. He's shooting sub 30% from three, and Terrence Ginyard was shooting in like the mid 40s in non-conference play, and he's shooting 33% in conference play. So they have just a lot of shooters, and some of them are going to be on, some of them might not be, but they have so many guys who could shoot. Just shoot the lights out. And they just kind of feel like a Duquesne team. Like they have David Dixon, who's just like a very good defensive center. It's just they're a really well-rounded team. I feel like they don't specialize too much in anything, which is kind of what they did last year. But they just have so many guys who can just this could be his game. This could be his game. Yeah, I mean, and Hughley, you don't know what you're going to get with Hughley. Super high ceiling there. He's been good since he came back, kinda. I say that he's shooting 34% from two, and he's a 2-point shooter. So I don't know what's going on there, but they just have so many guys.
Yeah, it's a really interesting group of players, that's for sure. Jacob Nikas, who's been talented, David Dixon, the Williams and Alex and Jimmy Williams, not related, but both are talented players. Terrence Ginyard has been an excellent pickup from Tennessee Martin in the portal, but this is still a group that it feels like it hasn't really totally gelled here. And I think the storyline probably is in their 2-point defense, I feel like, Palmer. That has really been their killer for them all year.
Yeah, I mean that's not what you really expect the Duquesne team, but that's what's been happening. Uh, I mean, I just kind of assume that David Dixon's playing good defense because he has for the first 3 years of his career. Uh, it could be something with Hughley because Hughley has 0 blocks in conference play.
Yep.
I'm gonna guess that's not a good 0.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting little dynamic there. Hughley has really this incredibly high ceiling for Duquesne on offense, but has been notoriously pretty awful on the defensive side of the ball. He was suspended earlier in the season. He is now back, but is not starting, usually behind Dixon or Nietzsche there at the center spot. But this is an interesting matchup for Mason. Really, really interesting to see, especially with a Duquesne team that likes to press hard and likes to move fast. It'll be really interesting to see, I think, where that one goes for the Patriots. But it'll be another interesting matchup then on Saturday. Homecoming against the Hawks. St. Joe's have won 6 of their last 7 conference games, including a home win over Dayton, to put them at 6-3 with one of the better ranked defenses in the conference right now. That's kind of been their specialty, especially at 2. Justice Ajabar making a strong case, I think, at least in my opinion, for to be Defensive Player of the Year. I think that much is clear. But we've got to look at it here, Palmer. What do you think is going right and wrong here for the Hawks, and what does Mason have to worry about if it comes to be a suddenly very hot St. Joe's team?
I think what's going right is they got rid of Deuce Jones,
Yes.
uh, a volume scorer who couldn't score but took a lot of shots. Uh, getting dismissed from a team means something was real. That's not basketball related. You know what I mean? That's a problem.
Yep.
And they've been really good since he left. Uh, I mean, Jaden Glover Toscano was kind of their X factor preseason, and he's been a really good scorer. Uh, this year, Haskins has been crazy. Uh, Pretty much everybody's been playing up to expectations except for Finkley. But yeah, Ajibor, I mean, he was giving Haynes fits last year. I mean, Mason was
Yes.
down like what 18, 17, 18 in the end of the first half in that game. It is because Ajibor just was destroying Haynes,
Yep.
and I mean Haynes brought it back, but they have a lot of really good guys. I feel like this is it's still a Billy Lang team, but I feel like they're playing it's like a Billy Lang roster, but they're not playing like Billy Lang players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're shooting like decent amount of threes, but not like a gazillion of them, and they're defending
Mm-hmm.
really well. Uh, I'm not sure Billy Lang had a team defending like this at any point.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think the question around St. Joe's is, and this is the big question, Palmer, outside of the Dayton win, all of these wins are against teams who I believe are currently put in the bottom 6 of the Atlantic 10. I think this is going to be a very interesting test week, I think, for St. Joe's. They have George Washington on Wednesday. They've got to travel to us on Saturday. It'll be, I think, a very interesting test this week, just as an A10 as whole, to see can St. Joe's kind of line up against a higher level of competition, I think, than maybe they've played in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't think they're real, as in like I don't think they're the fourth best team in the conference, but I think they're still like a really good team. Because they got blown up by St. Louis. That's gonna happen. At St. Louis, that's gonna happen. But they lost their other two losses are Davidson by 6, and then at VCU in the Segal Center by 7.
Mm.
Uh, so it isn't like they've been beating bad teams and getting blown out by good teams. They've been they've beaten some they've beaten some bad teams and Dayton, but Dayton is whatever. We have no clue what Dayton is. They have the
Yeah, no,
easiest strength of schedule. Yeah, they have the easiest strength of schedule, and they're not doing well. Uh, but I mean, yeah, it's the 2 point defense has been really good, and that's just not what you remember with St.
mhm.
Joe's teams, especially Billy Lang roster. Uh, Donahue is putting himself in. I mean, it's either him or Shirts, and it's one of those things like, man, that stinks if one of them doesn't get. If both of them deserve it. Yeah, I mean, so many players are just playing up.
Yes. Yeah, Derek Simpson also one to watch. I think we have to mention him. He's been very excellent for them in the point guard role this year. No doubt. Austin Williford is a talented freshman shooting guard who's taken a lot of steps recently. Glover Toscano at the 3, Haskins at the 4, Ajobar really the only true just main minutes getter, getting over nearly 80% of their minutes at the center. That tells you how key he is it'll be really interesting to see the battle, not just between him and Allensbach, but also between him and Ellington and him and Conga. That will be, I feel like, the key to that game. It's a really interesting matchup. It should be a major, major crowd at Eagle Bank Arena for homecoming on Saturday. It'll be very interesting to see where that goes. But like I said, it's a 3-game preview for this one, Palmer. Mason, on a Tuesday, they head to Richmond, not to play VCU, not just yet, Palmer, but to play against Chris Mooney's suddenly struggling Spiders. Richmond has lost 5 straight conference games since starting the year, 3-2, and now their only 3 wins have come against Fordham, St. Bonaventure, and LaSalle. After a buzzer beater win by Rhode Island, it's just been downhill from there. They've been fairly uncompetitive. The game against VCU, they only lost by 8, but they were pretty out of that by halfway through the second half there. Richmond, the struggles for Chris Mooney outside of the year where he got Jordan King scoring like crazy continues in the portal era.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of first year guys or first year with the Spiders guys here. Kind of expect Mooney teams to get better as the season goes on, but as you said, 5 in a row, like it's February. You can't really bank on getting better as the season goes on once you're in February and you've lost 5 in a row. I will say it's kind of impressive. They're shooting 39% from 3,
Mm-hmm.
and but they're last in 2-point percentage.
Yep.
That's not good because they're not taking a lot of threes. Uh, yeah, I mean, Beagle's been
And the
out.
defense has also been atrocious for them this year as well.
Yeah, which is that's not a Richmond thing. Richmond's usually like, we're gonna have a very okay defense. You're not, they're not gonna force a lot of turnovers, but you're gonna take bad shots. And teams have not really been taking bad shots.
Yeah, you have to think the interior play. There has to be some disappointment. There's a lot of continuity there in their front court with both Mike Walls and Jonathan Beagle returning for their second season as a duo together at Richmond. I have to think it's probably one of the more disappointing duos returners in the league there. I think especially in Walls, who I think some thought could potentially make some noise to be an All A10 player this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure center's the problem because it kind of seems like they don't really they have. If you look at their it seems like they just kind of don't have anybody who can really play the 4 spot, because if you look at, they have 5 guys playing the 4, and none of those really stick out defensively to me. I mean, Rumaglu, who is a fine player, is getting minutes there, not a defender. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I think they just don't have the athletes to really compete with A10 guys, uh, and they're unfortunately they aren't doing enough on the offensive end to counteract it.
Yeah, I believe one of the smaller teams, not just in the A10, but in the country, 293rd for average height. You can kind of see it in their wings here. We talked about this a little bit in the Davidson game preview as well about Mason actually having not necessarily a height mismatch without playing Adebayo or Sivka at the 4 against Davidson. That doesn't really seem like it would be a concern here against Richmond with the guys they have playing their wings either.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it'd be a problem. Also, Mike Walls is no longer like a point center anymore. Don't know what's happening there.
Yeah, I don't know why that's happened.
Yeah, that's I guess that's not good. That could explain why they're not doing very well from 2. If if your passing center can't pass, then it's kind of not very effective.
No, no, and you have to wonder maybe the dual short guys at the point guard spot. Mikel Tyne, 5'10", Aiden Argabright, 5'11". He's listed at 155. Palmer. He's had a couple of good games here, but against some of these more physical teams, that's going to lead to some struggles. A really interesting matchup for sure still, but it feels like out of these 3 games, that might be the one that it feels like Mason truly just matches up the best with.
Yeah, I mean, Jahari Long and Mincy against, there'll be a 5'11" guy on the court at all times. I mean, I seem to remember against Winthrop, Jahari Long was just shooting like nobody was in front of him when 5'9" Kareem Brazier was on him. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's kind of why they, not really gonna blame them, but Rhode Island, like their game winner was a pretty contested mid range, except it was 5'11", 155, Aiden Arkwright on him. So it's like, how contested was it if the guy's this tiny? But Mooney's loved his little guards.
Yep.
But I mean, 5'11", 5'11", 150 freshman. That's going to be defensive liability. Like no matter what, it's not his fault, but that's going to be a defensive liability. You're just a little
Absolutely.
guy, freshman, yeah, in such a hard system to learn as Richmond.
Yeah, it's a big problem, especially if you're not getting steals, which he's not really right now. That seems to be the biggest thing right now. Not really a whole lot of steals like we saw with Jason Gilliard way back in the day. But Palmer, we're gonna end that here. That'll be it for us today. We'll see you guys after the Richmond game before Mason's first Friday 10 game in a couple of years here. Mason will travel to George Washington to take on the Revolutionaries in DC on Friday night A10 basketball. That will be the game we preview first. But of course, Mason has to make it through these 3-game stretch next to continue to be on top in the A10. We want to thank you guys. This is the Onward to Victory podcast hosted by Giant Killer. I'm Joe Szymanski. He's Palmer Johnson. Thank you, folks, very much for listening.